Good evening, BookTube, YouTube. This is Johnny again. It is still a Sunday here in Southwest Michigan. It is June the 8th, 2025. It is 5:10 in the evening. My wife just left for church again. She's always on the go. And I looked at my wife. My wife writes down what she's going to do throughout the week, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. And my wife, I can't make a video unless I know that I'm not going to be interrupted by, and I know I have all the books that I'm supposed to receive in the mail. And I know I won't be interrupted until at least 6:30. My wife gets home around 6:30 from church at night. Most churches today don't have evening services, but my wife has always gone to church twice. She's a twicer, she says. And so she left, and somebody had a comment today saying, show some books. And I do have books, and as I told you, I'm still, I took advantage of that Princeton University Press 50% off sale in spring. I looked at the Yale one, but I didn't see any books in Yale University that I really wanted. But the reason why I haven't shown those Princeton books is that I'm still waiting for one more to come in the mail. So, but this video is just going to be about books. Now I'm writing in I got my diary out again because I found some books I've been looking for 2 days. The other night I got from Amazon, I ordered a book from Amazon and they were going to deliver it that same night. And what that book was, I'll show it to you. And the reason why I have been looking, see, I think Amazon knows me because I'll look at a book for a period of time, and I think Amazon keeps track how many times I look at that book, and then they shoot it down 50% off or 46% off, and they know I can't resist. And I was looking at this biography. You know, I'm crazy about biographies, and I was looking at this biography yesterday, and they said I could have it by 10 o'clock that night. And sometimes they'll do that and then it comes the next day. But I was sitting out front last night, or the night before, and I was talking to a neighbor about the Reformed faith and Catholicism and purgatory and salvation by grace and the 5 points of Calvinism and my conversion experience and my education. I get rambling. And I was waiting for that book to be delivered, and it came around 9 o'clock. And this is the book. It's Christopher Isherwood, Inside Out, a biography by Katherine Bucknell. Now, Christopher Isherwood, oh, I forgot, I have another book by him. Hold on, wait a minute. Christopher Isherwood, he was a writer, he was a translator, he was a screenwriter, he was, and he wrote a book I've had for many years called The Berlin Stories by Christopher Isherwood. As you all know, I'm very interested in Berlin, especially in the 30s. And it says here, first published in I'm reading on the back here, this book. First published in 1935 and 1939, the two related novels, The Last of Mr. Norris and Goodbye to Berlin, which make up the Berlin Stories, are recognized today as classics of modern fiction. The charming city of avenues and cafes, grotesque city of night people, Fantastia, a dangerous city of vice and intrigue, a powerful city of millionaires and mobs. All this was Berlin in 1931, the period when Hitler was beginning his move to power. So I've had this book for a number of years, and I haven't read it that I can remember. But I have been collecting his writings over the years. Christopher Isherwood. Says here, the story of Christopher Isherwood's life is one of pilgrimage away from the constraints of inheritance and empire towards authenticity and spiritual illumination. Isherwood authored Goodbye to Berlin, which inspired Cabaret and A Single Man, was born an heir to a crumbling English estate. He died an icon of gay liberation in California, while his partner of 30 years, Don Harley, painted his death portrait. Isherwood began his career depicting the psychological wreckage of First World War. While living in Berlin, he began to write his reputation making fiction with W.H. Auden. As you know, Auden's one of my favorite poets, modernist poets. Plays inspired by the city's nightlife, its artistic underbelly, its fevered politics. When Hitler took power, he fled with his German boyfriend, who was pursued and arrested by the Gestapo. Isherwood left Europe and found work as a screenwriter in Hollywood, where he became a disciple of Hindu monk Swami Pramavanana. Together they translate the Bhagavad Gita. Isherwood shed his family ghost, became a chief instigator of the cultural shift that made gay liberation possible. Every step of the journey served his writing, one of the greatest diarists. He recorded his experiences and transformed them into fiction and memoir. So anyway, he's always kind of fascinated me since I've had Berlin stories. But I knew I had other books by Christopher Isherwood, and it took me 2 days to find them. And I found them this afternoon. I had The World in the Evening by Christopher Isherwood, which is a novel. He also, so he wrote this, and it took me, how I found this. I found it behind my stack of Christopher Hitchens writings. It was at the very back in the dark. I could not see them. It was this one and this one I've been looking for 2 days. Almost broke my back looking everywhere. This is Christopher Isherwood, Christopher and His Kind, 1929 to 1939. And this is an autobiography. Christopher and His Kind is a slice of autobiography. It describes 10 years in the writer's life from 1929, when he left England to spend a week in Berlin and decided to stay there indefinitely, to the beginning of 1939, when he arrived in New York to start a life in the States, which has continued until the present. The book contrasts fact with fiction. Real people Christopher met in Germany, with portraits of them which appear in 2 of his Berlin novels and have later appeared fictionized to an even greater degree in I Am a Camera and Cabaret, the plays and movies adapted by them. So the chief characters in this book are Christopher's kind, the people who regarded as his friends and natural allies, among them W.H. Auden and E.M. Foster. There are glimpses into many different worlds: the refugees from Nazi Germany, the British colony in Portugal, the group theater company which performed the 3 Auden-Isherwood plays, the film studio which Christopher worked at and later used for the setting of Prater Violet, the literary circles of Mon and Virginia Woolf, wartime China, which Christopher and Auden visited in 1938. So I found these 2 books. It took me 2 days to find them. I found this one, I knew where this one was. Prater Violet by Little Sin novella. I knew where this one was. So I finally found them. See, when I get a biography, I have to have every book I have by that writer or painter or sculptor or musician or poet, I have to have them all together in a stack. So now I have them all together. So you wanted to see books, right? I'm still reading today. I'm really enjoying Flaws in the Glass, a self-portrait by the Australian writer Patrick White. I've been reading this for 2 days. I got this book yesterday, and the reason why I bought this book, hold on, I gotta show you. The reason why I got this book is called an essay by Virginia Woolf, A Room of One's Own, and then The Common Reader. Now, I've been reading Square's Haunting, 5 Writers in London Between the Wars by Francesca Wade. Really enjoying this. And it's all about women becoming, between the wars, the First and Second World War, and trying to become independent women who can pursue their intellectual pursuits. A writer, an archaeologist, one was an economist, one was a poet, and one of the writer was Virginia Woolf. And all these women wanted a room of their own. That's what the kind of basic this theme is. And they all came to this one area called Bloomsbury Square Haunting, and they had like boarding room or boarding house, and they would get a room and they would have a place that they could become artistic or pursue their intellectual pursuits. And it's based on Virginia Woolf's essay, A Room of One's Own. And then I wanted The Common Reader because I had the second Common Reader in my Virginia Woolf collection. I had the second Common Reader, which are like literary essays, literary criticism, and this is the first one, The Common Reader. And I started reading this last night before I went to bed. The first essay, which is the first one is on. I read the introduction, The Common Reader. It's just on English literary criticism. So I got that yesterday. Now I have the first Common Reader, then the second. I have a big Virginia Woolf collection, and then I have been reading The Shape of the Ruins, a novel by Juan Gabriel Vasquez, translated from the Spanish by McLean. It's kind of, it says here, a highly sophisticated, fast-moving political thriller by Alan First. I used to have all of Alan First's books, but then I dehauled them. You gotta get rid of stuff. But I've been reading this, and when I'm finished with it, I'm halfway finished with it. I was gonna read another novel by him, but a booktuber showed this book about a book that he was showing books that nobody's read, that he thought that he was going to show in a video. And he showed this novel, and it's by one of my favorite American writers. I've been reading him for as long as I can remember. And he showed this big, huge, fat novel, which I've been looking at for years to read, and I think I'm going to read it after I finish reading this book, The Shape of Ruins. It's John O'Hara's book from the Terrace. I've always enjoyed the novels of, I think I've shown them over the years. This is one of his, this is over 900 pages, and I'm going to read this next, I think. Frank O'Hara. Frank O'Hara from the Terrace, it says in the back, as bold and ambitious as its hero, this powerful novel by one of the masters of modern American fiction traces the dynamic career of a banking tycoon, Alfred Eaton, a man marked for fabulous success. Eaton sets out from a small steel town in eastern Pennsylvania before the First World War to arrive after the Second at the corridors of national power in Washington, D.C. Beautiful women, money, social prestige, political prominence. Eaton wins them all. He is not one to argue with destiny, not until he hears its echo in the hollow of his heart. That's kind of basically the theme of John O'Hara's novels: wealthy, powerful families, men, and their triumphs and their falls. And you want to know about books. Now, I showed you that I got from the Book Nook Leonard Bernstein's letters, edited by Nigel Simone. And when I got his letters, I was reading them and I wanted a biography. And so last week I went on, I asked Google, what is the best biography on Leonard Bernstein, who was the conductor for the Philharmonic New York Orchestra, and he was a very famous composer, conductor. I grew up watching him on TV, and he's always been a kind of an interesting character to me. That's why I got the letters. But I wanted a biography, and they recommended this one. And I got it in the mail by Humphrey Burton, who was a close friend with Leonard Bernstein, and he wrote this biography on him. So now I have the letters. So when I'm reading the letters, I can look at what his life, the context of the letters. That's why I want a biography. Usually when I get letters, I like a biography, or at least a couple of biographies. And so I got this one. I bought used. Humphrey Burton was a friend and professional colleague of Leonard Bernstein for 30 years. Burton worked with some classical musician, many radio and television programs, including a 20-part radio series for the classic FM. Later wrote his biography, also published by Faber. Goes on and on. Anyway, I got this. So now I have the letters of Leonard Bernstein, letters, and then I got a biography to go with it. So those are the books. Now I have other books, and I could show you books all day long. As I was looking for my Christopher Isherwood books, there are so many books downstairs that I don't think I've ever shown in a book video. But I want to really get into John O'Hara. I've read over the years several novels of him, but I never read this big fat thing. So I'm going to tackle this when I finish The Shape of Ruins by Juan Gabriel Vasquez. Yeah, I'm reading Square Haunting, 5 Writers in London Between the Wars by Francesca Wade, and I wanted to read the essay The Room of One's Own by Virginia Woolf. And I like reading literary criticism, literary essays. She has essays on, for example, Defoe, Addison, Jane Austen, George Eliot, Joseph Conrad, other writers and other literary subjects. I had this one. I haven't read it. I don't think I remember reading this one. So now I have both of them, the first and the second common reader. Yeah, really enjoying reading Flaws in the Glass by Patrick White. I ordered today used a biography on Patrick White. I have his novels, not all of them, but after reading this little autobiography by him, I want to know more about his life. I might get his letters. But the same person who wrote this biography on Patrick White edited his letters. So after I get the biography, I'll probably get the letters in the future. So I'm glad I found Christopher Isherwood, World in the Evening, a novel by him. So I like to have everything together. The Berlin Stories by Christopher Isherwood. Prater, Violet by Christopher Isherwood. Christopher and His Kind, 1929 to 1939. Christopher Isherwood. I would buy his diaries, but you can't buy everything. I mean, there is a certain limit. And I want to get into his biography, Christopher Isherwood, Inside Out by Katherine Bucknell. So that's the books. So I'll close. It's supposed to rain around 6:30 here. We need some rain. It's kind of dry. And hope you have a good reading week. Yeah, I do recommend Square Haunting, 5 Writers in London Between the Wars by Francesca Wade. I do recommend the writings of Patrick White, Virginia Woolf, you can't go wrong. I really enjoy writing. This is the 3rd novel I've read by Juan, Gabriel, Vasquez. And really enjoying it. I've always enjoyed the writings of John O'Hare, but of course he's a certain time period. This was first published in, I think, 1959. So this is published in 1959. So you might not be where I like those kind of novels from the 50s, the 60s, 70s, the early 80s. I like a lot of novelists I have from the 80s I like, but I've always liked John O'Hare. So yeah, I'll get into reading the life of Leonard Bernstein someday soon. So that's it, folks. That's the books. There's always books. Yeah, it's like, one thing about BookTube and being a book lover, there's never enough books. You could spend a fortune. Some people have one kind of literary genre they like. There are booktubers I know, all they do is read westerns. There are booktubers who only read women writers. There are booktubers that only read classics or science fiction. Some just read romance. Some just read books on the Second World War or economics or politics. Me, I read all over the place. Not only secular books, but Christian books, and there's no end. Art history, literary criticism, essays, short stories, First World War, American history, American literary history, writers. I mean, I don't have the diaries of Christopher Isherwood. If I had the money, I'd go buy them. I have a whole shelf of John O'Hare. I have almost everything that he wrote. I have almost all of Virginia Woolf's writings and biographies and all kinds of things on Virginia Woolf. I don't have all of Patrick White's, but now I'm going to kind of get obsessed. Like I said, I'm a completist. So now I'm kind of looking at what else can I find used by Patrick White, which I don't have him. I have 3 or 4 novels of his that he wrote that I don't have. So there's always something. There's no end. And then you're going to be an old man like me. You don't have time to read everything. And plus I got to write. I got to pray. I got to read the Bible. I got to prepare for eternity. I'm going to die. And I need to set my mind on those things that are above. But anyway, I truly want to get into Christopher Isherwood, Inside and Out by Katherine Bucknell in the near future. And now I have all his books in one stack. Anyway, I hope you had a good reading day, a good new week. We're going into the middle of the month. I don't know if we're going, I got my diary out. Let me see, next Sunday is Father's Day, the 15th. That'll be the middle of the month. This week is complete blank for me, which I like. I never really with me, like I said, I've always just wanted to be a gospel minister. I went to Bible college, I went to seminary, I did an internship, I was involved in starting a church, and I worked for almost 15 years in an egg processing plant. But I never really wanted to do anything except stay home, read and write, and live a contemplative Christian life. And that's what I'm doing. It took me to being 72 years old to achieve that goal. And that's what I'm living. I'm living the life I've always wanted to live. And then I realized that it's coming to an end. But at the same time, I know that when I die, I'm going to go to heaven. And I'll be living the perfect life in the very presence of the Lord Jesus Christ, the elect angels, and the saints of all ages, worshiping the King of Glory. And I have no comprehension what that life's going to be like. But that's what I'm seeking and preparing myself for. That when on my deathbed, that I'll be ready to meet Jesus. So I'm rambling. Hope you're having a good Sunday. Have a good reading week. Check the books out. You can always read my online diary, Crooked Fingers, which I write every day. I mention these books. I post these videos. And I'll sign off. May the Lord bless. And until the next time, bye.